Relative and correlative clauses. First of all, why did I put grass for relative? Because if you think about grass, it depends on the sun for growth, right? So whenever you think of relative, if you're doing kind of like color coding in your work, maybe put the word relative in green because grass depends on the independent, that is the correlative, the sun. So this color coding is going to help us in this explanation of what is relative and correlative. Let's just take a note of these relative words now. Please repeat. Since, yattaha. Where, yatra. Just as, yatha. When, yada. If, yadi. Okay, correlative. Therefore, tattaha. There, tatra. So too, tatha. Then, tada. Then, tada. In other words, what is the first thing we can notice? They are in pairs. For example, since we came to the class, therefore, let us learn. Where there is knowledge, there must be also happiness. Just as I teach, so too you learn. When we all end the class, then we begin our homework. If you don't do your practice, then failure is imminent. So how do we now create such sentences in Sanskrit? That's the next question. Let's see. What do we know so far? We know the normal sentence, just like any other day, right? We know the normal sentence, just like any other day. All we're adding is we're putting relative here and we're putting correlative here. That's it. And notice the order. Relative, the green, is first. And then we got the sun, the independent, the correlative, after. So what's the order? Relative first, correlative second. Let's do an example. Relative, since you come, therefore I teach. Same thing in English, in Sanskrit. Okay, step one. Let's create. Read the original sentence. Okay, we come to Rama. Okay, let's translate that into Sanskrit, please. We come to Rama.
Vayam Ramam gacchami.
Gacchamaha. Okay.
Gacchamaha.
Since he is virtuous. Okay. What do we know so far? Let's ignore the word since. He is virtuous. Sa dharmakaha asti. Step two, identify the relative clause. How do you identify the relative clause? By simply identifying the green word. There it is. You go, oh, okay. So if a sentence has the word since, that is yattaha, then that is the relative clause. So identify the relative clause and put that first in the sentence. Before doing that, what is the relative clause? Think of a relative clause that without it, the sentence still makes perfect sense. That means you don't actually need a relative clause. For example, if you don't do your homework, then, unpleasantness is imminent. So this is actually relative. You actually don't need that. It's just like extra information. I can say failure is imminent. I can say that by itself. It is independent. But if I say, if you don't do your homework, that is actually just extra information. You don't need that in a sentence. Therefore, what is relative? Without it, sentence still makes sense. It gives extra information to the correlative clause. So what is relative clause? Think of it as extra information onto correlative. What is the relative in this case? Since he is virtuous. So we come to Rama, that is correlative, independent. It stands by itself. You actually don't need this, right? The sentence still makes perfect sense without this relative clause. So we come to Rama, it stands by itself. Okay, so identify the relative clause and put it in, since he is virtuous. Next step, Find a corresponding correlative word. How do you do that? You take the word since, there it is, since, and you find a corresponding correlative, tataha. There it is. I put therefore, I put it right there. And then step 4, finish. Since he is virtuous, so notice, I did not change the order. It's still number 1 in sentence. Number 1, number 1. What did I do here? We come to Rama. All we did was we transferred the sentence to the end and we added the correlative word. That's all we did. I want you to notice. We come to Rama. We put it at the end, right there. And then since he's virtuous, we put that first. And then all we did was we added one single word. Where did we get that word? We simply compared it right there. If the word since, yataha, is there in Sanskrit, then tataha, you use the word tataha to fill in the blanks. Since he is virtuous, therefore we come to Rama. So this is the Sanskrit way of writing out the sentence. We come to Rama since he is virtuous. Okay, what do we learn so far? Before translating to Sanskrit, you need to first rearrange the English. Here it is. We rearrange the English into the Sanskrit compatible version. We came to Rama since he is virtuous. We came to since he is virtuous, therefore we come to Rama.
Relative has to come forward anyway.
Exactly. So this is how it's done. In English, you'll notice that we first put the correlative and then we put the relative. In Sanskrit, it is reversed.
Sorry.
Yes?
So here in Sanskrit, we would write it as yataha sa dharmikaha.
Yep.
Asti tataha
Vayam
ramam gachamaha. Sorry, gachamaha.
Exactly. Okay, good. So let's do that again. How would you write this in Sanskrit? I guess that's the step 5, right? Since, bring the word yataha there. Yataha. And then continue translating. Yataha sa dharmikaha asti. Therefore, tataha vayam ramam gachamaha.
Agachamaha?
Oh, come, agachamaha, good.
So are yataha and tataha indeclinables or do they decline?
They are indeclinables. They are subject to sandhi though. So what Shiva just asked was, is this going to be subject to having some declensions at the end? No. They're always going to be yataha and tataha. They're kind of like indeclinables, like cha is always going to be cha no matter what. But you're going to say cha pi, right? In the same case here, you're going to have sandhi. Okay, let's do some more examples. I see where the king lives. Let's apply the formula. Just look at the colors here, please.
Bring the relative to the front where the king lives.
Yep, good.
And then the matching thing there is there. So where the king lives, there I see.
Excellent. Okay. So where king lives, comma, you fill in the blanks. There I see. So all you did was you rearranged and you added a new word. That's it.
Yatra nripaha vasati tatra aham pashyami.
Excellent. I am enjoying when you read this book.
When you read this book.
Correct?
I am enjoying it.
Yeah, and there's just one word before I am enjoying it.
Then I am enjoying it.
Excellent. And Melanie picked that from here, right there.
Yada etat pustakam pathatsi tada aham rame.
The teacher is happy when students come to Sanskrit.
Yada शिष्याः संस्कृतम् आगच्छन्ति तदा
Adhyapakaha sukham asti. Yes?
Can we say bhavati or asti or is it correct?
Bhavati or asti, same thing. Yeah, asti is a lot more common though.
Ah, okay.
Actually, that's a good point because here, whenever we talk about a person, I tend to use bhavati more because bhavati represents a connotation of becomes, right? So the teacher becomes happy. It's a lot more accurate than is. I mean, you know, you can kind of interchange them, but
Asti will be used when it is.
is,
And
yeah.
He becomes. Yeah.
Yeah. So bhavati has more of that, like I'm becoming happy or, you know, you become this. So bhavati, good, Mira. I go if you go.
If you go, then I go. Yadi gachasi,
Mhm.
tada gachami.
Ah, excellent. If Rama conquers the army, then Sita is happy.
So if Yadi Ramaha Senam, if Jayati,
Mhm.
Tada Sita Anandita Bhavati.
Sita Anandita Bhavati.
Sita Anandita Bhavati.
Because it's an adjective. Therefore, this a can change into an a, aha, or m. Depends on, not m, but it will be like this. Depends on which one you're qualifying.
If it is a male, if it is Rama is happy, would it be Ananditaha?
Ananditaha, yeah, good.
Ananditaha. Okay.
Yeah. Tada Ramaha Ananditaha Bhavati. If it was a fruit that is happy,
Ananditam.
yeah, good. Phalam Ananditam, good. All
So
right.
what are the, like, when do we know when to apply this relative and correlative? Are those trigger words like since and therefore and where and there? Like, if
Exactly.
we see one of
Exactly.
them, then we trigger. Okay.
Good. So you're always going to be given these words, always in English. You just have to link it up to these words manually.
Oh, so
Right.
you'll always look for the relative.
Yeah, you're always going to be given the relative in English form.
And right?
See, in Sanskrit, you don't need it. Yada, tada, sta, sati, nischala. You're already given the, you know, both.